helping an argumentative kid stop arguing every little thing without changing who they are. My name is Jodie Thornton, and I want to help you to really shift your strong-willed kid into someone who can problem solve and work with others without letting go of those strong values and qualities that make them a great leader, and also someone who's really going to stand up for themselves and stand up for justice when they're older. So ultimately, what we look at when we think about all of the strategies that are used for argumentative kids, when we look through whether it's a gentle parenting strategy or an old school parenting strategy, what we're ultimately looking at is a strategy that helps your child know when it's time to give up on arguing, right? And I don't want that for your child, right? If I think about for myself, so I was going to say was, but still am, an argumentative person. And when I look back at when I was a kid and then also as an adult in the workplace, like looking at what did that look like to other people? And so a lot of other people would interpret me as being difficult for difficult's sake, as someone who was a know-it-all, as someone who didn't know when to let go and just go with the flow. But ultimately, I'm a person who really likes to understand how things work. I'm a person who wants to do a really good job. And I'm also a person who feels very strongly about fairness and justice and equity, right? And so for all of those things, for like it's different reasons for different situations, but I always wanted to understand the true reason. And so when people would give me unsatisfactory responses, I would either not give up and things would get difficult, or I would acquiesce and like get to a point where I'm like, oh, I know I have to acquiesce at this point. And that's not really a healthy way of being. It's not an ideal way of being. I'm letting go of my strengths and also missing out on the opportunity to really get to the root cause without it feeling like it's an unpleasant experience for the other person. And so it was really about learning to understand how to have the skills to look at building a solution that works for everybody and being able to communicate in a different way. And we can help our kids with these skills from an extremely young age. As soon as you notice your child is being argumentative, that's when we can start. It's never too late, no matter how old your child is. But if you've just noticed this in your child, let's get started on it, right? This is a time where we can start to build your child's skills at communicating, at understanding other people's perspectives, and really respecting boundaries as well. So our very first thing we need to do is figure out, why is your child arguing, right? And when we look at it, again, it's that perception of argumentative children and people is that they're being difficult for difficult's sake, or they're being difficult because they don't care about the impact on other people, or they're being difficult because they only focus on what's important to themselves. And what we really want to look at is it's not, very rarely is it any of those things, right? Very rarely is it any of those things at all. If we start out with one of the really common things is that the reason they're given for something is arbitrary, right? What they've been told is the reason why things can't be done the way they want them to be done is an arbitrary thing. And so if we look at a really common example for kids, it's things like cleaning up after themselves. So a child, when we say you need to clean up after yourself, it's arbitrary, right? And I know it's difficult to hear that, but if we think about it, of all the adults you know, what's the variation in how quickly people clean up after themselves? What's the variation in people who do not clean up after themselves? Either they leave it to the other people that they live with, or they just don't, right? There's so much variation in what does cleaning up after yourself look like and mean in practicality, right? And so that's really an arbitrary thing. And so your child knows that at different houses, there's different approaches to tidiness. There's different approaches to how quickly we need to tidy up. There's different approaches to who's responsible for tidying up. They know that this idea that people need to clean up after themselves, it's arbitrary. And so what we really want to do then is look at what is the real reason that they need to clean up. Is it that you can't relax without a tidy home? Is it that their things are going to get broken, and they'll be upset about it because someone's going to step on them or, accidentally break them in some way? Is it because they're in a Lego stage and it's really going to hurt everybody from stepping on them? Is it because they have a baby sibling who is going to ruin their creations, right? Like, we want to look at what are the real reasons. And so what we want to look at, if you think your child might be in this space because they're arbitrary, a good question to ask is, why do you think I want you to do this, right? And if they come back with, oh, it's just what you want, right? They can see, like, they're thinking it's a power struggle, or they're thinking that what's important to them isn't being considered. If we can ask a child, why do you think this is important to me? And they can come back to you with the real reason, then you know it's not an arbitrary issue, it's something else, right? The next one we want to look for is that the tone you're using with your child when you ask them to do something implies that you want them to agree with you, right? So the tone says, so don't you agree, right? And I'm just trying to think of a good example. So if we think about, you've had your turn with the Lego blocks all afternoon, so now it's your sister's turn, right? And so you can see how the tone there implies, like, can't you see that it's fair, right? And so what we're looking for is, we're saying to them, you should agree that what I'm asking you to do is the right thing. It's the logical conclusion. It's the solution that works for everybody. And when they think, well, that's not the solution that works for me, then when you've used that tone that's like, don't you agree that this is the solution? Of course they're going to argue the point, because they don't agree that it's the solution that's going to work for them, right? And so what we want to look for is your tone with boundaries and things that need to happen. Your tone needs to be, I'm informing you, I'm letting you know this is the important thing. So it might be what's important to me, it might be what's important to your sibling, might be whatever the thing is. Like, I'm informing you this is the thing, and then I'm suggesting that the solution might be this. If you've got a better solution, I'm all for it, but it has to meet this criteria, right? So then the tone isn't a question. It isn't, do you agree with me? The tone is just letting you know this is what's needed. So a good one for that might be getting your teeth brushed. It's like, your teeth need to be brushed in the morning and in the evening. That's not negotiable. What we can negotiate about is how, or a little bit about when. Like, it needs to be every morning and every evening, but there can be like, where in the routine does it happen? We can negotiate how to make it easier for you. So we're being clear that when I'm not asking you if you agree, I'm not asking you to agree that keeping your teeth clean is important, because quite often children, I don't even know what age I'd choose to say, but children developmentally not ready to think that every time I clean my teeth, it's causing me a long-term consequence, a positive or negative long-term consequence. I'm not asking you to agree that keeping your teeth clean is important. I'm telling you that you must keep them clean. What I'm willing to negotiate on is, how do we make that easier for you, or how do we get what you need met at the same time as brushing your teeth? So the next one that we want to look at is, if your child is arguing every little thing, we want to look for, are you actually asking them to acquiesce? Are you telling them that you need to let go of what's important to you? Because our beautiful, strong-willed, argumentative children, they are not willing to be selfless, and we don't want to change that about them. What we want to do is figure out, how do we get a solution that works for everybody? So if you notice that your child, as soon as you notice your child's arguing, I want you to just review, like, am I asking them to let go of what's important to them? Am I asking them to acquiesce in this moment? And so then it becomes, we're going to shift into problem solving, rather than getting them to let go. We want to shift into, how do we solve this? Now, if you've got a little argumentative one, that means they're old enough to come up with solutions, right? If they're clever enough that they are arguing, so I'm not talking about straight defiance, I'm talking about argumentative kiddos. Those kids are developmentally ready to think about solutions. And that's one of the biggest things about argumentative kids. We want to shift, instead of finding reasons why they should win the argument, we want to shift all that intellect, all that energy into how do I find a solution that works for both of us. And these kids, honestly, we get the quickest results with these kids because once they recognize that I'm not asking you to acquiesce, I'm looking for a solution that works for both of us, all of a sudden they use all that intellect, they use all that energy, and they do find solutions that you might not have thought of at all, or that you might have thought of but you just didn't have time because you're the parent and you're exhausted, right? You've got so many other things to do, whereas they have so much more time. They also have more creative energy because they're younger and they're less patterned to think about what's the quickest way or what's the way I know works for this. They're so much more open in their thinking. So we really want to open them up to being the person who finds the solution. They're really, really good at it. Now, the next reason your child might be arguing at every little thing is they actually enjoy the mental stimulation that comes with finding the holes in the argument. They enjoy and they actually take pride in the fact that they're now capable of poking holes in someone else's argument, right? And again, we want to shift this into take that in energy, take that payoff of like, I'm so proud that I'm good at this, shift it into finding solutions, right? So we're asking questions like, are you just really happy because you can find like little holes in what I'm saying, or you can find reasons why I'm not right? Okay? And these argumentative kids, they'll often be able to say, yes, it's so great that I'm able to figure out where your logic is wrong, right? They'll actually say that, not in those words usually, some of them will, but they'll actually be great at shifting. Okay, so great. So I want you to take that and focus on how do we find a way that works for both of us. Again, I'd come back to that idea of giving them the real reason, because if they're looking for that the payoff of I'm so clever that I can find the fault in your logic, and then they need to be aware of where is your boundary and why is your boundary, so that then they can start looking for what is the solution that works for both of us. And I smile so much when I'm talking about these kids because they're so much fun to work with, because we get such quick results with argumentative kids because they're so attuned, they're so focused, and they're so clever, right? So we really want to harness this rather than try to dampen it. The last reason that your child might be arguing every little thing is that they're genuinely looking for connection. And if that's the case, you want to ask them outright, hey, sweetie, I'm a bit frustrated because it seems like you're just trying to find problems with what I'm saying. Did you just want to hang out? Do you just want to be talking? Right? And again, an argumentative kid is going to be so much more attuned to themselves and be able to say, yes, that is why I'm arguing. Or they might say, no, that isn't why I'm arguing. I'm frustrated about what's happened before, right? And they can really bring that up. And that brings me to another thing, is that maybe the reason they're being argumentative is that they didn't like that what they saw as something arbitrary didn't go their way earlier. And so now they're going to definitely make sure that everything goes their way now because it's not fair, right? Fairness and justice can be really important for argumentative kids. We really want to look at, is that why? Are you frustrated about what's happened before? Is that why you're arguing now? We really want to be asking those questions. So ultimately with our kids, we really want to be looking at why specifically are they arguing in this moment. If you've got a particularly argumentative kid, you might find that different arguments are caused by different underlying issues. We really want to look at, in this moment, why is this child arguing? And then we can find a solution. This is not something, as I say, it's not something we need to change about your child, like their detail orientation, their smarts, they're being adamant that they should get what they want to. We don't want to change any of that. What we want to shift is the energy into problem solving rather than the energy into where's the hole, how do I win this argument. We want to shift it into how do I get what I need while also getting what my parent needs, or while also getting what my sibling needs. That way we actually help them to harness these skills and use them for their advantage. And really, like, this is the biggest part of being a leader, right? So much of being a leader is figuring out how do we make this work for everybody. So I hope this has been really helpful. If you would like my help to work on these skills, so being able to figure out why is your child arguing, helping your child to figure out what is important to them, why are they wanting this to shift, helping your child to learn how to be curious about the other person's perspective and really understand it so they can come up with good solutions, and then building those problem solving skills, I'd love to have a chat with you. So you can book a call with me for 15 minutes, and we can just chat about exactly where you're up to and what's working for your child, what isn't working for your child, based on what you learned from this video. What do you think is going on, and where are you getting stuck? And we can talk about how I can support you to really lead your child to build those skills and harness them so that it becomes something that makes it easier for them to connect with other people, actually becomes something that helps them build close, connected relationships with other people, rather than something that makes them seem like a difficult person to get along with. You can book that call at jodithornton.com/call, and I can't wait to have a chat and really help your child to embrace this part of themselves and harness it into something that is a positive about them rather than something that other people see as negative.